Okay, welcome. I know you're following me on Instagram now and I followed you back. But this is pretty casual, very organic conversation. I kind of looked over your profile again this morning to decide what angle I wanted to take and I'm having a little trouble. Usually I'd get into a bunch of like personal details. I do wonder like where you're from.
Originally, I'm from Spain,
Okay.
but
And
I've
when
been
did
in the US for more than 20 years.
where do you live in the US now?
I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh, okay. How did you end up there?
Well, I moved to the States because of my husband. It's a long story, but we fell in love, met in Nicaragua, and dated long distance for 3 years and a half
Oh my
until we
gosh.
decided that I was gonna move to the US. I didn't want to come here. He didn't want to come to Spain. So I ended up being like, okay, I'm the one who's gonna come.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been here since. And we have 2 kids, happily married still. So,
Was that tough? Was that a big adjustment?
oh, yes. Yes. It was a big adjustment. Yes. And
Yeah.
I mean, my whole family is still in Spain. So,
How often do you visit them?
once a year, I try to go back, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes less, depending on what time of year I go back.
Is it expensive to travel to Spain?
It is. I mean, it's especially right now. Yeah, tickets. I'm not going back this summer. I'm like, I'm just gonna, take a little pause there. Yeah,
Yeah. Do you guys
but it
talk
is
a lot
expensive.
though?
What's that?
Are you able to talk with them a lot though?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we are in contact, constantly on WhatsApp. And I try to talk to my parents, you know, once a week, sometimes every other week. So,
So both of your parents are still living?
yes,
Oh, cool. How many siblings do you have?
I have one sister,
Oh, older or younger?
older sister. Yeah, 3 years
Oh,
older.
you're the baby. Okay.
Yeah,
No wonder you're the adventurous one who's willing to leave the country.
that's right.
How fun. So, okay, then I don't know how long I've already lost track of when you said you came here, but had you already started your career by the time you moved here?
Yes, I had started, and when I moved, I continued doing work in education, which is what I've been doing for the last 20 years. And in the last 10 years, I've been focused on social emotional learning. So teaching, emotional intelligence, helping teachers to teach kids. And over the last couple of years, I've focused more on the burnout and kind of like emotional exhaustion from the
Yeah.
adult perspective. It started really with the focus on teachers, but um, I've gone through my own experience with burnout, and that's why I wrote this book because it was my own process to heal and find tools that would work in the long term, not just fixing the short term challenges.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so this is one of the reasons I was so excited to you because I was in education for 7 years. My background is social work, but I
Uh-huh.
had worked for hospice for a really long time, and I still did part-time even after switching to education. I don't know why I always clarify that, but I just feel the need to. Anyway, so I wanted something different and felt very called to education because
Uh-huh.
I was having struggles with my middle child in the education system. So my naive self said, I want to go and be the type of teacher I wish he had, and learned very quickly why he had the teachers he had. Because teaching's the worst. I'm sorry, but it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Then after 3 years I switched over to school counseling, which still was incredibly difficult. So I did a lot of the teaching, social, emotional learning, whatever. But truly, even in that role, you're providing so much support to the adults in the building. And
Yes.
what I saw, I mean, obviously, there's so many systematic problems. And I do feel like with education in Oklahoma being such in the spotlight because we're literally last.
Mhm.
Um, I think maybe we have unique challenges or something that or the challenges maybe aren't unique, but they've become like a lot bigger than they needed to be because we weren't addressing them. Something.
Yeah.
We're last for a reason, right? Um, and I also think we lack a real infrastructure. But the thing that I saw was there really is zero support for the adults in the building. And
Mhm.
yes, there are bad teachers. I've seen plenty, but I saw more good teachers, very good humans doing their very best and getting no support in their role or even as a human. More importantly to me was as a human. Like
Yeah.
I was trying to teach them all the time, like, "Well, honey, you're bringing yourself into this room, yourself with all your years of stuff, and so, how can we work on that or whatever?" But so did you start out as a teacher?
Yes, I started as a teacher and had like different roles: teacher, program administrator. I've been a board member. And with my consulting business, more like an outside provider, helping teachers with professional development and working with leadership teams. But truly, what you are speaking about is one of the reasons when I started in social emotional learning, I thought, oh, this is the focus of the students. But I realized pretty quickly that adults had no idea how
Yeah.
to teach these skills because we don't learn them in school, right? These are skills that we learn by trial and error. And guess what? Adults make a lot of errors because we don't have emotional vocabulary. We are not in touch with our emotions. There are many things that we were asking educators to do and teach kids that they weren't doing themselves. So I think that part of developing the emotional intelligence of the educators and then moving into, administrators, and like you have to educate the whole system in order
Yes.
for that to work.
Yes. Well, and I mean, more than administrators, in my experience, it really was the highest levels possible were in need of this education. But I think what's really sad to me is that it felt like they were willing to teach adults these things if it meant it was going to help the children, but not because they cared about the adults. Like, I really believe, and I'm again only speaking to the systems I was a part of, but it really felt like they weren't humanized in this role. And I mean, I know as myself, I was dealing with very, very difficult students from day one
Uh-huh.
and had a zero background. I'm emergency certified. I have no idea about classroom management. I'm literally thrown to the wolves. And because I'm very relational, I made it work. I figured it out. And I was a
Right.
people pleaser and wanted my, administrators to approve of me. So I'm over functioning, I'm overperforming, I'm abandoning myself at every turn. I'm not standing up for myself. That first year, I mean, I became wildly unpopular with administrators after that because I wasn't going to do what they wanted me to do just because, Um,
Yeah.
but, like, I feel like the only thing that's really validated as a professional in education is if you are over functioning. Like, we'll give you a Teacher of the Year award because you've done far more than you ever should have, like, truly, and then that's that. So, that's why I think it
Yeah.
is really important to teach. I mean, I think everybody should be valued where they work, and when you say burnout, I'm like, "Oh, I felt it so profoundly." I mean, because I was unable to validate myself in these roles because it was the first time that I was this incompetent as a professional. So that was really a struggle for me and I was getting zero external validation. So it was just compounding every year that I stayed and even when I switched roles to school counselor, there's all this pitting people against each other and
Yeah.
people are constantly saying I'm not doing anything, even though I was working my ass off because I'm not doing what they want me to be doing and whatever.
Yeah,
And so that was another struggle, that just the people don't like me, people are talking bad about. I had no skills for any of that at the time.
yeah,
Been in social work a long time, still didn't understand any of those things about myself. And when I reached burnout, it was a full-blown mental health crisis that
mhm,
lasted. I was also having struggles with that middle child in my personal life. So everything was kind of blowing up at once, but I'm going to this job that's taking more than I have to give every minute of
right,
every day that I'm there. And so
yeah.
that was just huge for me, was just getting to this place where I'm like, I can't live like this anymore, because I was just like every single cell in my body had been over functioning, you know?
Yes. And when you're in an environment like that, it's not only your individual skills because we tend to put everything on ourselves, right? It's like,
Mhm.
oh, this is not working. What am I doing wrong? Right? Like we are always asking that question and you try harder, which is fine, right? To have that
Yeah.
thrive to say, hey, I want to improve this situation. But the context influences our behavior so much, right? Like if you are in an environment where people are not supportive, they are being petty, they are gossiping around you, you it's the likelihood that you will engage in that kind of more toxic behavior is higher than if you are in a supportive environment where people are kind and caring, right? So it's both kind of like how the individual skills combined with the environment, and that's how many people in education experience burnout because there's a lack of balance there.
Yes, yes. So, I personally I tried a little bit whenever I left education to get into professional developments. I haven't tried very much. Um, now this conversation is making me wanna try again. But, um, are you how do you feel about this? Do you feel like it's important to teach these emotional wellnesses, these being in touch with your emotions, vulnerability, understanding your own history, connection, all of those things? Do you think education should be looked at, the professionals that are working in it, as any other profession, that you go, you do your best, you try your hardest, and you should bring a full self to any role that you're in, and that these educators are best served to figure out their trauma, their histories, their stories, the way their brain predicts, all of those things, just because they're human? Does that make sense? Like, I feel like people act like teachers, again, they remove the humanization and they're like, well, you need to show up for these kids. But I'm like,
Right.
it's a job. I mean, yeah, we all follow our passions, and we go and we do the things that mean a lot to us. And I love that so many people are passionate about educating the future generations. Great. We need those people. But like, it is just a job. At the end of the day, it's a job. And the humans that are showing up to influence these other humans that are the future generations probably need to
Yeah.
like really take care of themselves.
Absolutely. And in addition to that, teaching is an emotional job. That
Yes.
means because you are dealing with kids, because you are seeing if kids have issues at home or they come from families that are not supporting them, maybe there are conflicts with parents, parents are going through divorce, you name, so many struggles that are possible as a teacher because you are human, you are going to take on the struggles of your kids, right? So the support that a teacher needs is very different than someone who works in finance, right? They are dealing with different
Right.
kinds of problems.
Yeah.
So I think differentiating and thinking about like, well, what is the kind of demands that we have on different professions, and then the supports that organizations offers should go hand in hand with those demands. And for teachers, having a place where they can decompress and maybe brainstorm with somebody else. Hey, I have a student who's challenging. Can you help me think through? This is what I have done. This is what's not working. I think those kinds of peer supports and having spaces where you can actually talk openly about maybe something that is not working well as a teacher is helpful because it helps you improve as a professional, but it also gives you an opportunity to be open and share with somebody else so you are not holding everything inside and then kind of like what to your point, putting the mask and being like, oh, everything is fine when maybe you are
Right.
crippling, you're inside, you are not doing well.
Yeah, because I remember that first year, first day, very first day, I said, "Melissa, we have made a grave mistake. What are we doing? Children are really not for us. This is not good that we have done this." But I had already announced it to the world and everything, so now I'm gonna stick with it. So then, like, immediately my goal becomes stick with teaching for 5 years so that you can become this next thing, and I did not, obviously. But yeah, I knew kinda right away. This wasn't a good decision, but I was not telling anyone but the people I lived with. "This is horrible. I am not well. I am not well at all. This is." And I just didn't understand at that point my nervous system was a giant wreck. Like, I could not handle this amount of stimulation while I was, like, living with a constant internal overstimulation, always. There was just so much that I hadn't dealt with in myself. So it just that's what I brought to that classroom environment, and those children love me. I still love them. I've, seen them graduate the last couple of years, and they know I loved them, but, oh, we struggled through a lot together. Okay,
Yeah,
so you wrote that book, kind of your first book, for educators, is that
that's
right?
correct.
Okay,
Yes.
and then you reached your own burnout. What did that
Mhm.
look like?
So for me, one of the first things that I noticed is that I mean, I had been doing work that I loved um, since I finished my doctoral dissertation was on social emotional learning. For 10 years, I've been supporting schools and districts. In my head, it was my life's work. I have found my passion and I burned out. And I noticed that I had lost the joy. So things that were normally would fill me, like meetings with educators and planning with leadership teams, I was not feeling the same way. Something felt off. And I was trying to work harder, not smarter through that and just pushing through and just kind of like giving myself small pep talks, but it got to a point where it wasn't working. And I tell the story in the book in the introduction, the day when I realized things are really not okay. I was on a walk with a colleague and we were brainstorming about my consulting business and he suggested, "Oh, why don't you consider this new line of work?" And I just started crying and I couldn't stop. I felt so overwhelmed by thinking about just putting anything else on my plate. I just felt like there was no hope, like I didn't have any creative juice left. And it felt like such a like pushing a giant boulder up a mountain. I couldn't picture it. And that day, that's when I realized, wow, I'm not okay. Like this is not normal behavior for me. And and from that day I started like really taking a harder look at what was I doing that was creating that situation. And one of the patterns, and I know you talk about patterns quite a bit, is the sense that I had to keep pushing forward, right? And
Uh-huh.
that's something we learned very early on. Is like, oh, when something is not working, you just keep trying, you keep
Keep trying
trying, right?
harder.
Try harder. But I was trying the same things over and over. Just okay, keep you know keep pushing and then when I realized, well, that's not working, I think that that opened up a door to say, okay, maybe slowing down a little bit might help you see really what's happening and why you are not feeling as content and passionate about the work.
How did you give yourself permission to do that, though?
I had to. I there was, I was in such a bad mental space that
Mhm.
I had to take that pause and give myself permission to reconsider And because we create so many narratives about who we are as humans, right?
Mhm.
You are an educator, a psychologist, a therapist, business person, and you put yourself in that box. And sometimes it's hard to see, oh, who's the person behind that identity?
Mhm.
And for me, it was thinking about outside of education, there are a lot of people also that need support in developing these skills. And that was almost like, oh, okay, I can think about how I can contribute to helping others, not only in education, but also outside. And that offered like almost like a breath of fresh air for me to think about, oh, I'm allowing myself to think about other problems outside of the education world.
Yeah. So would you say you got to, like, kind of a place of desperation?
I was probably in my lowest that I've been when I had that, I call it adult meltdown, where I was like, wow, this is really not a place where I want to be. And it takes a lot of courage to name that and say, this is not who I want to be. I want to it's almost like rekindling the joy that you have. And in order
Yeah.
to do that, I had to do all the tools that I had been teaching teachers. I had to apply them on myself. It's not that I didn't have tools, which is, I think, something important to name. Sometimes when people burn out, is not because they don't know how to take a break or how to disconnect or how to say no. There might be something deeper
Yeah.
that is really at the root of what's driving you to move forward in your life. And I'm now, after I went through that and wrote a new book, I feel grateful that I went through that experience, in the sense that
Mhm.
really has given me a different perspective. And I can tell you, I have so much more empathy for people that deal with depression on a regular basis. I realize, wow, the valleys are very low, and you can
Yes.
go very low and you can go very high. And knowing
Yes.
those valleys, I think it gives you an understanding of when you walk around the world and see people in your community, you don't know what people are dealing with. So knowing that that's a reality for many folks around me, and having that empathy that you don't know what someone is going through, I feel like I'm so much more sensitive to that. Even if I was before, I think I have a different perspective now.
I totally resonate with that because, for one, I really resonate with you saying you're grateful for that period of time. I think that that's a byproduct of the comparison. Like, when you get through the darkness and you see the light again, you're like, the light's so much brighter than it's ever been ever because you got through, like, that amount of darkness. And you can be grateful for the darkness because the light is so bright. So that, but also I wonder, do you think, I don't know that I've ever really thought about this very much, but something you said made me think this. Maybe it's just okay for our passions to shift or change altogether while we grow and we evolve. And I think maybe that's where we really get that fear is, well, this is what I've done. This has meant so much to me. Why would it not mean the same to me all of a sudden? Or, because you are still doing very similar work. And so it's okay that it shifted a little bit, but what were you so afraid of whenever you first kind of took the step back? What do you remember feeling fear during that time?
Absolutely. Fear, I think I felt very lost. More than fear,
Uh-huh.
and maybe the fear was related to feeling lost, of like, if I'm not doing A, which I thought that was my life's purpose, who am
Right.
I, right? Like, I think that you go to the deeper question of who are you as an individual, and what's your place in this world? And that idea, that purpose, and that became kind of like what you described, became the heart of my new book, of this idea that purpose is not something that you find and you arrive. It's like a destination. You are there and you're good to go, as you are describing. As we have different life experiences, and we change as humans, and that means that our sense of purpose and the things that are exciting and motivating and interesting to us change over time. And
Mhm.
once I saw that in my own for my own lived experience, I was able to reframe and maybe almost come out of the box that I had put myself in terms of how I was seeing myself, and being able to see opportunities outside of what I had been doing up to that point to be of service to others, which has always been my purpose, right? To help
Right.
others with my work. So that was a moment of kind of like clarity, when you see that as an opportunity and not as a failure, like you are failing in your career, you are
Yeah.
failing in your life, you are failing. Like, I think that having that mindset is so damaging to our own sense of self. But if you see that, okay, what is the opportunity in having this realization, and how can I move forward with this? That's where the progress is. But progress, it was interesting for me, because my pattern was to, strive forward, push forward. And when I realized, well, progress might mean just sitting with what I'm feeling right now for a bit longer, because I really want to try to understand what's happening. And truly is going back to the principles that I had been teaching teachers, right? So again, is sometimes it's not that you don't have the tools, but can you use them when the time comes?
Right. And what makes me laugh about that too is how many times, like, maybe a tool I picked up is an old one, and I'll forget about it, and so
Mhm.
somebody else will remind me. I'm like, "I can't believe I forgot about that, and I didn't even use it." Like, that still happens all the time, where I I kinda have a little running list of the daily tools that I'm using just to, get through life. Um, and then I'll kinda be like, "Wow, what is going on all of a sudden?" And I'm like, "Oh, I could just use that tried and true method from way back when. I forgot all about that." Um, and it's so easy to lose sight of where you are and realize, "Oh, I'm in need of a tool right now," because so
Yes.
much is done on autopilot and you're just going through life and not even realizing sometimes until it reaches a point of catastrophe that, "Oh, I was on the struggle bus a little bit and I didn't even realize it. Uh-oh." Because those early signs are easy to miss. You think you're just a little bit more tired. You think it's just like because daylight savings, like different things. And it's not until it really, like, grows and compounds that sometimes, I mean, I think for some of us, you're faced with the reality of, like, something's different and I've got to fix something. But I do think that we create our identities around this idea of purpose, and, I'm seeing this in young people, and I even saw this with my generation too, where I felt really lucky because I always knew what I wanted to do, help people. Like, I knew I wanted to be a counselor at some point. I didn't know kinda how that was gonna look or anything, but I knew that my past experiences were going to be used to help others. That's what I knew from a very young age. And I was willing to kinda let how that took shape just happen. And so, but I felt really strongly that I had a good compass, had a North Star always. I always kind of was in a trajectory, but a lot of the people I knew didn't. Like, they were going to college, but didn't necessarily know why or kind of what they wanted to do with their lives. I'm seeing that now with this younger generation, where it's like they think something's wrong if they don't have this sense of purpose. And I think that's what we're getting a little bit to the left of, is misunderstanding what purpose is. It's not but I understand our belief systems can really shape this. My belief system, my spirituality definitely shapes the way I view my purpose, but even what I view as a sense of purpose has shifted in the last few years. It's still under the same like umbrella, but I think that it can evolve and it should evolve as you evolve, and you should be evolving. So if you continue to stay in roles that stunt your growth, that's really the problem right there, is not because something has shifted, it should shift. But I think that we think purpose is divine, and
Yeah.
not just
Yes.
something that we cultivate within.
Absolutely. And also something you don't need to do humanitarian work in order to live your purpose. It's how are you finding meaning in what you do on a daily basis and how are you contributing to the betterment of your community. It can be that
Mhm.
simple, right? It has to be meaningful to you as an individual, which I appreciate because many times we go out and we fulfill someone else's expectation, but it needs
Often.
to
Yeah.
be authentic to you as an individual. So that's kind of like the first part. And then there are so many ways, everyday ways in which you can contribute to society. I mean, you can work at the post office and your work is meaningful because you are delivering mail for your community, right? That it doesn't need to be, you don't need to be a hero or a
Right.
first responder or a doctor or a teacher in order to live your purpose. You can have any kind of job and still find meaning in what you do and help others in what in their lives. So I think that bringing it down to also the practical level, that every day is an opportunity to live your purpose. It's not something that
Mhm.
you do when you have time or when all the financial burdens or your family obligations are done. It's not something you do when you retire. It's actually how you go back to like finding meaning in your life on a daily basis. And that can be very small in the very small things, very small moments in life, and it can be in, you know, big acts of courage. It's all,
Right.
everything in
Exactly.
between.
It all matters. Yeah. And I think if you're like in college, you should study things that you are very interested in studying. Like that's how your path should unfold. I think for work, you should do work that lights you up. One thing that I've really shifted in since losing a child is that I absolutely cannot do anything that even remotely drains my energy. Cannot. Like just and I refuse to. So, like, if I'm working with a client and it gets to where they're doing a really normal thing of kind of avoiding the therapeutic process and whatever, no judgment, but that's not the work I want to do. You know what I mean? Like, I want to work with you when you are ready to do the work and not like too much of chit chat and like making the hour drag. I can't do that. It doesn't light me up. It has to light me up. I have to feel this synergy. These conversations, I was saying no to 99% of people who asked for a minute. That's why I have so many solo episodes, because I was getting agitated. Like I felt like,
Wow.
people weren't connecting with me and it was really important to connect. And so, yeah, I think just what lights you up, what makes you excited, what doesn't drain you, what gives you the energy to get through, to be able to find more joy outside of work. If you're coming home from work every day with zero energy, you're not doing the right work for you. It doesn't matter what it like. Sometimes I daydream about something I've always wanted to do, I don't know why, but is be a bartender. Sometimes I daydream about that because I feel like I'd be really good at it. That's the social aspect, you know what I mean? But, like,
Yes.
go be a bartender if that's where your little heart feels pulled to do that. Whatever is giving you life, to have a life outside of work, because your purpose may not be in your work. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like your vocation doesn't have to be a part of what you deem as your purpose, but it should be fun and it should give you energy. And too many days of no energy, you got to look yourself
Yeah.
in the mirror and ask what needs to change.
Yes, and that was something that I went back to going through this burnout process too, in thinking about how you bring creativity into your life. And I think what you are speaking about when you're like, what lights you up, right? There's a part of us that wants to do the things that we like to do when we were kids, right? And how many things
Mhm.
we have on that list of things that we abandon because it's like, oh, that's not what adults do, or I don't have
Yes.
time for that. When maybe spending, an hour playing with Legos, that's going to bring you so much energy, or pulling your oil paint out of the closet and just doing something that is creative. And one of the chapters in the book is about creativity because I for me, writing has always been my creative space, and that's something that I was kind of doing the writing just because I was creating content and I have a newsletter, but I wasn't doing the writing from that deeper place, right? Where I
Mhm.
could just sit down and write and just take the writing whatever you wanted to go versus, oh, I need to share this content is very different. The motivation of where that comes from.
Yeah.
And the creativity part, I feel like it's an area that can bring so much joy to people when you
Mhm.
think about yourself and you bring more playfulness, right, into your life. What can you do that feels playful? And even I was talking with my daughter the other day, and she's going to high school next year, and she's doing some of the summer sports, and she was feeling so much pressure to go to the practice because she's like, well, they have a game today. And I was like, why don't you take it more, you don't have to perform, it's a practice and then a game, just take it with a little more playfulness. So we had a very interesting conversation about not putting so many expectations on, that you go to anywhere you're going and you have a sense that, oh, I'm here just to perform, or can you go there and just have fun, right? What if fun
Yes.
is the first objective, right? You are not so focused on the outcome or showing off your skills or whatever, but or even making a good impression. Can you just have fun? Because guess what? If you're having fun, that you can see it when people are having fun doing something,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, well, and even the teams that perform the best, look at them. As a group, they're having the most fun, truly. When they go out and they're connected and nobody's trying to, be the center of attention or be the best or whatever. Everybody's just there as one, unit and they're having a good time. They do great. And yes, what we're saying right now is not always a popular opinion. I get that there are I listen, have you met softball moms? They're kind of crazy sometimes. But like I get that people think, being committed to your sport means a certain thing. Um or even being committed to your team. And I think you can be committed to your team and not have the expectation on yourself that you should be doing this so that you can get a full ride scholarship and maybe be a professional. Those people who do that, I'm not like saying that they shouldn't, but very few of those athletes are going to get any sort of scholarship, let alone be a professional player. What if we didn't wrap so much of our children's identity up in the damn sports they're playing?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And to also teach that outcomes are not everything, right?
Right.
And I experienced that at work too, where if we when you are so focused on the outcome, then you miss what's the point of the process? What's the point of
Right.
going through something where you are so focused on the outcome? And I that's the place where I believe many people burn out because we are so focused on like what's the end result versus how we get there, and are we supporting ourselves? Are we having fun? Are we being creative? Can we be our authentic selves through that process, versus just really focus on what's the end?
Yeah, and you know what I've figured out is that you don't get all that much control over the end result. So, and the end result's gonna be what it is, but that messy middle part is where all the growth happens, where you can learn, I have a couple of ways of getting through this, and that is either taking everything far too seriously, carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, and attempting any sort of control over the outcome, or I can lean into what I know to be my truth, which is I have more fun when I'm doing this. I can change the way I feel about this, get through it in the most lighthearted of possibilities, and then allow the end result to unfold the way it will. And I
Yeah.
believe that that is your best chance at any sort of controlling the outcome, is just to allow it to unfold while you do the things that you can do. But so much of what you can do is not overthink the process, not overthink what you're doing. And I do think for me, fun in the things that I'm doing has been the key. If it's too serious, what are we doing here? And, like I said before, I think your job should light you up, but that doesn't mean that, physicians are going to go quit their jobs and whatever. So, how can you bring more of you and your true self into everything you're doing? And I think doing that leads to less burnout because we feel less incongruent. Because I really feel like that's what burnout is something feels
Yeah.
so out of alignment because we've lost sight of who we feel we are, who we feel we should be, and something feels very off.
Yes. And I think that naming what's that off is so important. A big part of burnout is emotional exhaustion. And
Mhm.
it doesn't happen overnight, right? It's like you are, we, as humans tend to, in order to function, we suppress all our emotions and feelings. So you are just kind of coping all day, and those emotions take a toll at certain point because you are might not be honest with what you are really experiencing. Maybe you are not taking
Mhm.
the time to process your emotions, right? And for me, like, looking back, I wish, right, if I can tell myself something, I wish that I had paused on those days where I was not feeling well, and instead of pushing through, I would have taken a minute to sit down with those feelings and be like, "Oh, what's happening? What's bothering you? Are you frustrated? Why are you, kind of like grieving something that you're losing, but you don't really know what that is?" Like, to
Yes.
have a little more clarity on what was that emotional weather instead of pushing through, because if you go through that process first, you have more insight into what you are experiencing, and then things don't become so big, right? And that's the piece where I believe that that's why these conversations are important, and teaching people about how to identify those early signs of burnout. And that emotional piece, I feel like it's so foundational. And we all need to learn how to, deal with our feelings, because they don't go away, right?
They
They come back
don't. They
sometimes
don't.
in ways that we are like, oh wait, that happened.
Yeah, yeah. I remember saying that after losing my grandma, who had been my primary caregiver as a child, I suppressed every ounce of that. And I was angry, like I was the reactive person, and I was binge eating donuts. So, like, in
Wow.
hindsight, I can see all the ways that the emotions were seeping through everything I was experiencing, but I was not addressing them. And so, yeah, like confronting the things that you're experiencing, it's not wrong to do that. It's very right to do that. You have to sit and you have to wonder what's changed? Like, wow, I've been really grumpy the last 2 weeks or whatever it is. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean a whole lot. I It won't if you address them while they're small, and before you reach catastrophe. If you can just maybe you really are overextended, like your kids are in a lot of sports and whatever, and your job is demanding. You can have periods of grumpiness and disconnection. It's the sitting and dealing with
Yeah.
that, holding yourself through that matters. You don't have to make it mean anything, but you do have to take care of yourself, or it will mean a lot of things later.
Yes, and from what you said, the holding yourself, I feel is so key. The fact that we can take that time to pause and just be honest with what we are experiencing. And from, also writing the book and talking with people, people are afraid of dealing with their feelings
Yep.
because they don't want to know what's under the surface. And that fear really, it's almost like it keeps us captive in our day to day, because well, if you're not dealing with it, it's staying there. It doesn't have a way to move through your system. And if you are able to hold that space for yourself, then things don't become a big deal. And that's the part that I like, that becomes less you are more in control actually in the long term when you are able to go through that process.
Absolutely, because do you know how many people tell me, like, I don't have time to deal with I'm gonna deal with it later. If I stop now, I'm never starting, all the things. I'm like, I remember thinking that for sure, but you're lying to yourself just like I was. And I get it, I really do. But I think if I were to say one thing in terms of holding ourselves that really has helped me more than anything over the last like 6 months is what would I like? Because I think we all, like, crave a mother or something when we're sick or going through something really emotional, that, like, nurturing energy, and I'm always like, "Okay, what would I want from either my spouse or a friend or a mom figure in this moment?" What would that feel like? And how can I recreate that and give that for myself? How can I put myself in that nurturing love energy that I'm craving right now? And I think when you can just pause and acknowledge, like, oh, I'm feeling some type of way over this short period of time before it becomes a long period of time. What, how could I feel really comforted right now? And sometimes I will picture like a grown up bringing me chicken noodle soup before I go make myself chicken noodle soup. You know what I mean? Like, but
Yes.
you can get into the energy of all that nurturing for yourself, and that's my one takeaway is you have to take care of yourself, and there's lots of ways to do it, but really asking myself, if I were to ask someone else for help with that right now, what would that look like? And then how can I give that to myself?
Yes, I love that. Something that was helpful for me was just to name that it was hard what I was going through, just to say it out
Yes.
loud, to say, wow, this is really hard right now. And just even
Mhm.
like sitting with that acknowledgement felt like, oh, I'm not trying to push through. I'm not trying to overcome right away. I'm just there sitting with the fact that this is difficult, that like, and it's challenging, and I'm feeling all of it because it's a difficult situation. But
Yeah.
you are so right that there are ways in which we can provide ourselves with that compassion and that support without needing others, which is also a nice way to know that you can be strong for yourself, that you can be nurturing for yourself, that you don't have to depend on others. And that can also feel very liberating when you are not expecting, or you are not depending on others to care for your own needs. That's something that it's hard for many of us to learn. But once you learn it and you know you can support yourself in that way, it can be a game changer.
Yeah. Well, tell us about this new book and then where we can find you.
Yeah, so the book is called Living with the Heart in Mind, a practical guide to healing from burnout and cultivating purpose. And it is available in all book retailers. But if you want to know more about it, you can go to my website, at loreamartinez.com. That's Lorea Martinez.com. And you can learn about my work and the book and all the good stuff.
Yeah, and you have something on your website. Let me not misquote you here. Uh, a self-assessment, the Living with the
Yes.
Heart and Mind self-assessment. Talk about that for a sec.
Yeah, so that is a companion to the book, but you can take it even if you haven't read the book. And it has three parts: hard skills, which are skills of emotional intelligence. It has habits, and it has vital qualities, which are curiosity, creativity, and wisdom. So the self-assessment truly walks you through the content of the book, and it will ask you questions about different things that you do in your life. And at the end, you get an email with the results, so you can see for those three parts that I described where you are, and it gives you a little bit of a roadmap of like, okay, I'm doing really well with habits, but maybe my vital qualities are not as good. So then you have some ideas for how to support yourself in moving forward.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I'm going to make sure to include that link in the show notes as well. I'll include your website and any other links pretty much. Let me look real quick that you have there. Um you okay, I will include your website, that link for the self-assessment and your Instagram.
Fantastic.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here. I've had so much fun with you.
Thank you, Melissa. Great conversation.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to press stop if you'll hang out for 1 sec. Thanks for coming to Emotionally Unavailable. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, and share.